I went away to the mountains into a mate's shack about an hour out of Melbourne, and just lived a monastic lifestyle almost every weekend or every other weekend for that 8 months, and cracked out as much as I could.
Axons Unleashed.
G'day, ladies and gents. Welcome to another episode of Axons Unleashed. It's been a few weeks, Daniel, since we've been in the studio here, but here's another bit of a chance for another one of these updates. So we've had Heston Russell, Jared Goundry come in, and now we've got an update with someone else we did a podcast with probably about a year or so ago. The man, the myth, the legend, Harry Moffitt. So yeah, Harry, welcome back to Axons Unleashed, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having us on, Robbie. Yeah, good to be back.
Good stuff, mate. And just as a quick little sort of reminder to everyone, so yeah, Anthony Harry Moffitt, nearly 30 years in the Australian Defence Force, mainly with the elite SAS, team commander and specialist, completed 11 deployments. Wounded in action in 2008. I can't remember you covering off on that one in the first bit, mate, but that's all right. You're still with us, which is great. Served as the SAS Human Performance Manager, transitioned to psychology with a force of elite sports, military and corporate performance by his consultancy, Stoic Group. And previous work, 11 Bats, reflective bestseller memoir of his SAS experiences. And the new release, which is what we're going to talk about today, is the fourth pillar, Modern Stoicism and the Philosophy of High Performance. So yeah, mate, with a business called Axon, of course, when it's all about the mindset and the psychology of it all, then I'm really looking forward, Harry, to get a bit of an update on what you've been up to over the last sort of 12 months or so. And I know you've done a recent launch of your book, so I'd love to sort of get a bit of an understanding of how that went as well.
Yeah, mate. Well, I'm making a bit of a tool of myself on social media at the moment, but it's been great fun. So, on the trail now of flogging the book and promotion. Recent launch went well. We got another one in Canberra on the 21st of August, which if anyone's interested, they'll have to register. So just DM me on LinkedIn or whatever.
Yeah, good. How do you find, like, a very, very different world to what you and I sort of grew up in and did our thing in our respective careers? What's it like being in the corporate sector now, where you're sort of, it's almost like banging your own drum about a thing that you've created, and in the name of sort of getting as many people to come along and listen to the message and stuff. Yeah, I'm genuinely interested about the journey internally and innately that you're going through now by leading a very different life to what was 30 odd years in the green.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question for veterans, and I think that the short answer is I'm loving it, mate. I've kind of given in to civilianizing myself. I've got this my own working theory that for me, at least, my position is that veterans don't lose their identity or purpose or a tribe. It's a some part of who you are. It's with you all the time. It's just that just as you did when you were 16, you leave the village to go off to, in my case, join the army and fight overseas. At some stage, you have to return to the village, and that's what I'm in the process. That's my mindset as I go through, and that means processing what's been and coming to peace with all of that, and accepting the realities, working out what's useful in the next chapter and taking it forward with you, and then parking what's not useful. So I don't need to know what the beaten zone of a Mag 58 is anymore in the civilian world, but I do need to maintain the personal relationship building skills that I had, for example. So, yeah, mate, I'm loving it, and I've found a new tribe. The corporate team that I've spent most of my time with, that I'm very happy, and they're happy for me to mention, is a group called Merrick's Capital. They're a hedge fund, big business. Got billions and billions under management, and they've become my new team. I love rocking up to work there. I go in there once or twice a week. I know everyone personally, and that's been a brilliant network, if you like, to fall into, or a team to fall into. And that's given me the grounding to move forward. And I'm really enjoying being a civilian, mate. I kind of had to give myself a couple uppercuts along the way, forgive myself about a bunch of things, and really get out of my own way. Buffer the ego, and realize that we all must eventually return to paying bills and kids going to school and all that type of stuff. But I've just tried to keep a positive mindset, an asset attitude, as I like to put it.
It's so cool. I love how you sort of characterize that. Interestingly, I had a coaching session with someone from my old unit, there was a young captain when I was there, as one of his bosses, and he was just giving me an update on all things going on. And it was good to get an update on what's occurring in that space. I got off the call fulfilled that there was a bunch of blokes that I used to know back in the day that have all sort of progressing up the ranks. And I'm sure many of your peers have done or are doing the same. But also got off that call, I'm like, I'm glad I'm not part of that anymore. Like, that's not who I was. It is who I was. It's not who I am now. So no, I'm really resonating with some of those things about, just dropping the ego, forgiving yourselves for the things that have occurred. Be at peace with that. Grab the positives out of all those things that have happened in our past, and allow them to have that asset mindset and drive forward to have a great future. Because you and I have got many years left on this earth, mate. And
Correct.
it's almost, even though you did 30 years, I did just shy of 25, whatever it is. We should all still have more years outside of the military than what we did in. So we might as well make the bloody most of it, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing through writing the book that I consolidated in my mind, I've always had a sense of this, it was given to me by my father, is that the greatest calling we all have beyond service in the military, and I controversially would say even above family, is to be a great citizen in your community and to contribute to your community. That's our first calling, if you will. And the military takes us very close to that. It makes it very real when you serve in the military and represent your country, if you want to take it that far. But so I never lost that purpose. I think that's a great purpose, and I'm loving. We live in Flemington now. It's a beautiful little community and really entrenched in that. And it's not sexy helicopters or guns or anything like that, but it's meaningful and really enriching work. And the world is beyond the military. The world's full of so much awesome stuff and awesome people. You kind of, you're doing yourself a disservice by not diving into it and getting into it and enjoying that.
Yeah, good on you. It's so true, mate. It's sort of reflect on what Axons doing in the community, and I still dream that I'm in the military in various sort of facets of it, be that back in the days in the young artilleryman and all my way through to spending some time in SOCOM like you and I did. My subconscious chooses whichever path it wants to go down. But because I'm speaking to military members and veterans or ex-serving people on the daily, literally every night and every day, about their circumstances, I feel like I know more about the military as a whole, because that, all ranks, all services, all sort of corps and specialities we sort of have a bit of a chat about what's going on in their workspace. So Army, Navy, Air Force, and whatever else is going on, I sort of have a full spectrum there. But it's happened maybe 7 or 8 times now. I was speaking to a couple that used our services, bought a couple of houses with us. They're about to basically restructure their portfolio and cash out and walk away with $600,000 or $700,000 of wealth that they have now created by buying the right properties in the right areas to now be able to buy their own home in Canberra. And just the feeling of enrichment, as you used it before, and just satisfaction and joy and contribution and giving back to allow that young family to now really secure their financial future is just phenomenal. So yeah, and I get a real sense, mate, you're on that same journey.
Yeah, and well done, Robbie. I think it's a credit, mate. If you can do it, if you can help your own people where you've come from and make some money for yourself and be successful yourself, that's great.
Yeah, good. Tell us about the book. Let's switch gears into all that. So all that sort of philosophy stuff is I could talk about that train of conversation, Harry, for hours, especially with someone like you. Mate, tell us about the book, the fourth pillar. Just how did that all come up? Like, literally take us back to the start. Obviously, we spoke about 11 bats last time, and I'm glad to see that's doing so well for you. But, the thought about writing a new book, the undertaking of it all. I've watched a couple of YouTube clips or whatever it was about Mark Wales, sort of documented him writing a book and stuff like that. So I know it's a huge task. It's something I've thought about doing. But my wife's like, what, in your spare time, you're going to fucking write a book? So she dot-balled that back to the bowler, pun not intended, to me very quickly. But what was it like for you, mate, when you even thought about sort of having a crack at writing another book, and just sort of take us on that journey a bit, if you will?
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to write another book, and I had a very good idea about what I wanted to write it about, and that was the fourth pillar. And so the publisher approached me and asked, "Are you ready and want to do that?" And I said yes, and here's my proposal, and I put a proposal through, and they agreed to that. What was surprising was they came back and said, well, you've got 8 months to get a manuscript in. And I asked, how long do you normally take for a manuscript? And they said, around 18 to 24 months. So they put me under the pump, and I did. I said, oh, well, okay, let's get about it. So I literally had to stop saying yes to anything business related. I just kind of locked up the business, tightened it down, and rolled it all into 4 days. And then the other 3 days a week, I went away to the mountains into a mate's shack about an hour out of Melbourne, and just lived a monastic lifestyle almost every weekend or every other weekend for that 8 months, and cracked out as much as I could, and then delivered the manuscript. So that's it in a nutshell. What I would say, what was interesting, because I love talking about the writing of the book, not so much the book, but you're up at 5:30, you go for a long walk with a pen and notes and just contemplate and talk to myself and talk through the book. And that's part of the book in there, is the practice of actually verbally out loud talking to yourself and having conversations with yourself. I think it's a hugely beneficial practice. And then I'll come back, juice up on coffee, and go for 6 hours, just riding with the little breaks here and there, just walking, strangely barefooted. I had a little lap, it took about 5 minutes, barefoot walk through the bush, and then finish off the day with summarizing the notes for next day, go for a hard run through the hills, come back, cook, go to bed, read for 2 or 3 hours, because reading's a really important part of it, and then just repeat that for 3 days, sometimes 4 days in a row. And you become very productive very quickly when you don't have all this rubbish distractions that we fill our lives with. And so that's kind of the process, mate, in a nutshell. And I love it. I hope I can do it again. I have a book proposal lined up to go for the publisher soon, as soon as I'm off this bloody social media and promotion train.
It's all part of it.
So it is. So I hope to do it again. Yeah.
I note in your book you speak about Stoics and Spartans and the like, and sort of having quite a primitive life that they used to lead back then. Do you go into those modes to try and adopt what it might have been like for them back there, to really sort of go deep into, portraying some of their philosophies in your book?
I think I've always been that way anyway. I think people who are attracted to the military, boldly, and generalizing here, the Stoic, in particular, Stoic philosophy might resonate with them, because it's about scarcity. It's about being able to get back to nature. If you're an infantry soldier, you're kind of compelled to do that anyway.
True.
And being comfortable in that, and the Spartan lifestyle. So I'll just go back a touch. A publisher's main feat in these instances main aim is to live up to their subline of their book, right? Because that's normally the publisher pushing for an expansion to capture the readers at the bookshelf. Where I came upon where Stoicism became important to me, because in the book I try to push people beyond Stoicism. It's one of thousands of different schools or thinking in philosophy, but it's the primary one that everyone resonates with, because it's kind of left after all the fragmentation. But I met a guy by the name of Percy Cerity, who's the greatest, I will say, unarguably the greatest coach of all time in any sphere. He ran the world's first institute of sport down at Portsea in the 50s by himself, introduced weight training to runners and running to weight trainers. Was the first one to push people away from bananas, potatoes, and Guinness to nutrition and muesli. He invented the fun runs. He invented his own muesli. He was doing breathing, meditation, and cold plunges before anyone else in the modern era. And I think he still paces his contemporaries. I could go on a lot longer.
That's impressive.
But he was complete, mate. He had his own philosophy. He was very well read, and has written a lot, very widely, broadly written on the subject. He believed that philosophy was more important than the conventional approach, which is the biopsychosocial approach. So modern programs, high performance programs, how you think about it, Robbie, generally, is the human in the physical, psychological, and social pillar, as I refer to them. And Percy's always thought there is something missing. When I set up the high performance program in Perth, I always felt there was something missing. We were using humans as platforms, as resources, as exploitable tools for war, and that's necessary. But it didn't do much to prevail them through and post career. And I think that's what I try to answer. And the fourth pillar, the answer, the gap in modern programs is philosophy. And just to finish, the Stoic and the Spartan thing comes from Percy Cerity. His philosophy was called the Stoican philosophy. So it takes the virtuous life well lived from the Stoics and the life framework training, the agogis of the Spartans, and brings them all together, because Stoicism lacks the physical elements of modern Stoicism does. Proper Stoicism does include that. Modern Stoicism focuses on virtue, whereas the Spartans bring us the physical element of that, the embodied element, and that's what Percy did. He brought them both together and then overlaid philosophy to synthesize the whole framework, if you will.
I really love it when there is a business, and that hence that your consultancy firm, Stoughton Group, right? I love it when there's a story behind the business name, and there's thought, and there's substance, and there's soul that goes into it. You know, it's all too great. Like, there's no way I was going to call this business the Robbie Turner Property Group. Like, fuck me, like, you know, a Harry Moffitt consultancy or something. Like, it just doesn't suit what come up with. Create something which is far more meaningful, like you just, you know, beautifully described, mate. So well done on that.
Thanks, mate. Yeah,
I agree. Good. Tell us about what I was gonna. In the book, it talks about the 8 privileges.
Yep.
Yeah, just sort of tell us a bit about sort of how they. So I love the 3 pillars that you spoke about before, and now the 4th one. So yeah, just sort of take us on a bit of a journey about sort of what that means there. So was it elite philosophical practices to navigate a toxic world and deepen wisdom and self-awareness from so give us a bit of an idea about that, mate, please.
I will. So from the front half, the first chapter of the book, or the first section of the book, is setting the scene for why what modern high performance programs. I tell some stories about AFL, NRL, corporate sectors, etc. The middle part of the book is laying out the 3 pillars. We don't stop and think about this. No one's really laid out what does a high performance program look like. If I'm a manager of I'm a budding manager at an AFL team, I don't really have anywhere to go to look at that. So I've tried as best I can. Remember, I'm a small p bar side philosopher, and I'm a modestly educated knuckle dragging ex-operator, right? So
very humble.
I hope I speak to the operator. I want to speak to the operator, not to the academics, not to the heads and the experts. Yeah, they will make of it what they will. And then in the third part, after saying why we need philosophy back in our lives and why it's important in high performance programs, the reason is they are best suited for us to explore this. The third section, I try to lay out what is philosophy. Young Harry Moffitt would say, "What the fuck has metaphysics got to do with my performance, Harry?" It's a good question, and the answer is a lot. So I unpack philosophy a bit, and you can read that in the book. But I end up, you've got to have something to do to practice philosophy, and so the ancients, from the Delphics to the pre-Socratics, through Socratic and Romantic and Enlightenment periods, all the way up till now, they've left breadcrumbs. And so I've broken it up into the 8 privileges, and all of these are privileges because we live in a Western world where we've got time and resources to do this. But I put to you that even in other worlds or other domains, that these are already embraced. So the 8 privileges are waiting, watching, listening, talking, reading, writing, thinking, walking. Now, those 8 privileges are radical acts in the modern world. A walk around the block is deemed as exercise. That's rubbish. We used to walk tens of thousands of steps habitually every day.
Patience.
Yep. Patience. No one's waiting to speak anymore. Everyone's waiting to speak, but no one's being patient and being an observer of the world, watching, bearing witness to the world around them. It's all me, or these days, the technology's got us. Listening has become something, again, you wait to speak. It's not so much listening and guarding the space for people to contribute to. And I could go on. Even thinking practices, we're almost afraid to be alone and stop and sit by ourselves. And so under all these things, I try to make a case under each privilege that's as a group, there are praxes, there are philosophical praxes. This is what Kierkegaard did. This is what Nietzsche did. This is what Socrates did. This is what Heraclitus did, which whoever philosopher you favor or whichever school, these are the praxes that they used. And what I'd like people to do is to think deeply about where they apply these in their lives. Reading's an elite practice these days. The amount of people I speak to who goes, I don't have the patience, who would say to me, I don't have the patience to read a whole book. It blows my mind.
Yep.
Reading is a radical act of self-love and so on. So that's what I try to do. I want to leave people, I want to start this discussion why philosophy is critical. It's more important than the physical, psychological, and social elements of performance. It's the most important, and I hope to lay that out to continue or start a discussion in this.
Yeah, I really relate to everything you just said. One of the other guys that used to work here said, if everyone's running or everyone's sprinting, no one's thinking. So you sort of got to give yourself that space and find that patience to allow things to occur. You know, we're in our 9th year now, and we are on a huge continuous improvement mindset, and we're always tweaking. There's no whiplash in the business, but there's always little micro sort of improvements there as you would expect to just try and, we're never perfect, always learning, all that sort of stuff. And I finally gave myself a little bit of space over the weekend just gone, just to finally think about a few things. And I've came back with a completely different way of delivering one of our really core and unique concepts to our clients. And it's just effectively like that just-in-time training principle that you and I are familiar with. So, and if I didn't give myself the space and the patience and the self-love as you describe it, I wasn't doing any reading, but I was like, how can we optimize this to make it better for internally and externally? And I delivered it to the team. They're like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. But I didn't give myself the permission to sort of slow down a little bit over a weekend and just come up with that new concept. So yeah, whilst I wasn't aware of exactly what you're about to speak to then, I guess I'm just providing you a response from a recent lived experience of giving yourself permission to slow down and just think. And not to think from perspective, I wasn't looking for it. Because I gave my mind the space, it fell in there, and I'm so great. It's now going to revolutionize the way we deliver some of our services.
Yeah, that's such a great example because we got to get ourselves out of our own way to let your mind do your work. So I dabble in consciousness and mind, and Robbie, it's amazing to me that the mind is something we are unblinkingly using every moment of our day, and we got no idea really what's going on. Yet we speak so little about it. And I used to stand in front of operators. I do now. I go back to the unit and speak about these things. And because you've got time, you can explain yourself. But if I stood in front of a room full of operators back when I was in the unit and started to talk about philosophy and theory of mind and consciousness and qualia and the experience of the world, the most important thing to all of us, go, fuck off, Harry, go by, have a brew, mate, But to slow down the mind, so mind wandering's all of a sudden a thing. It'll be coming to a LinkedIn page near you soon. There's a guy by the name of Professor Moshe Bar who I love reading and watching. He's very down to earth and talks in a way I can understand. And the power of mind wandering, I can point you to the University of Pennsylvania, Professor Elizabeth Johnson as well, just to make sure I've got my evidence base squared away. With the power of moving out of the way of your mind and letting it do the work. This is a radical concept. Get it, stop thinking, allow your mind to wander, find space for it just to kind of ebb and flow like it does in the shower where epiphanies come. And the mind actually does the work for you. The mind, I've got this theory that the mind knows us better than we know ourselves, and it knows what needs to come forward. And kind of like an AI, which I resent, and everybody can embrace it, but this is Harry Moffitt. I resent the whole thing. And that's part of the book, is a pushback against it, because that is consuming our attention, it's deforesting our mind. Social media and social media companies are deflowering our children's minds as we speak. To take time and let your mind, your internal, I hate to use it, but AI program will refine, will condense all of your thinking for the week down into that little consumable 10 bullet point or that one great idea. And until you get out of the way, and all of the practices I just mentioned are designed to help you expand your mind. In the book, I use the analogy or the metaphor of the ocean. I feel like a lot of people, as Russell said, most people would rather die than think for themselves, and most people do. A lot of us are just wading in the shallows of our own minds, and trolley carting the internet, when we should be pushing people right out to the depths and the breadth and the richness of the oceans of their thinking. And that's what I hope the book kind of leaves with people.
Yeah, I love that, mate, for sure. You might have seen my little quip there. I have, so even as Daniel is in the studio, I'm like, I was thinking about you this morning whilst I was in the shower. And he's like, say again? I was like, there was a concept that I was talking about for us that were doing the content line. So in the shower, for me personally, in the shower to resonate with you, when I'm ironing clothes or when I'm folding clothes, my mind wanders and fuck, I've had some good ideas. I think they're good ideas. I've had thought bubbles come into my mind when doing such stupid, mundane tasks. It's funny how the mind sort of wanders into that space.
Yeah, and walking's perfect. So just to pick out one of the privileges, don't walk on your toes, walk on your heels, hands behind your back. Don't walk for time. Don't say, I need to be back in an hour. Walk for space. And one of the ancient tricks of the Delphics was to pick a tree on a hill. And you walk to that hill and walk back. And in my mind, I tell a story about the tree of knowledge. And I have a tree of knowledge in Melbourne that I walk with to see with business people and sports people. And it's a thing. It really sets the scene. It primes them. We go to the tree of knowledge. Yes, we are. Why do we visit the tree of knowledge? Because we learn something. Why can't we be back in an hour and a half? Well, it will be back when we're finished. So we'll block out 2 hours. We could be back in 30. And we're going to practice walking on our heels, walking slowly. Try it. It's bloody hard, but that's when your mind can switch gears from dealing with navigating the environment around you. Your brain and all your neurological system can start to just slow down and relax and make those automatic things really automatic and get out of the way and allow thoughts to flow to the ocean currents of your thinking, to get on those and sail them or to swim them.
I love that bit about not walking for time, walking for space. I wrote it down like that. I need to get better at that, because if I've got time to walk, I'm doing it for exercise and movement of my knees, that sort of stuff. So it's a totally different reason for being there.
Correct. That's spot on. Spot on.
Yeah. I'm interested in your thoughts on meditation. I've done it a little bit over the years. It's not something I've committed to for long enough. I've definitely gone into full meditation mode a few times, and certainly from a mantra perspective, like repeating the same thing over and over, and just to let the mind fully relax on things. But I don't think we've spoken about this before. But I'm keen on your philosophical, lived experience or professional sort of opinion on meditation and the like, please.
Yeah. So meditation, mindfulness practices are a flavor of the month, and for some people they really get into them. And I know people who do meditate every day. I know a lot of people who say they do and probably don't. It's a really hard discipline.
It is.
And to do it, I've got a lot of respect for people who can do it day in, day out. Same as mindfulness. Mindfulness it's not a sit down practice. Mindfulness, you can practice that at any time, just sitting by yourself, even with a beer, just sitting out there and just bring yourself back into yourself. Feel your body. Your body's not lived; it's living around you, and to reconnect. For me, I'm not a meditator, so my thinking on meditative and mindfulness practices is we've borrowed them from religious practices, and they served a very deliberate purpose for religious elders and the elders of different churches and religious practices, and they serve a very good purpose, whether it's to practice our obedience to a deity, or to go deeper into ourselves, as many of the Eastern meditations do. I will leave that to the experts explaining those and pulling those out. But it worries me a little that they've been commoditized. And again, part of the book is pushing back against that these practices often are not, you don't need to go and buy these practices or to put a framework around them. And the very first privilege that a human can have is to sit silently by themselves and contemplate their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to be meditative to do that. You don't need to be in a situation. If that's what you need, then fair enough. but I do that in a sauna, Robbie. So I have a daily practice. I've got my sauna in my backyard. I wish I could show everyone. I love it. And every time I look at it, it makes me relaxed. And that's where I go and think and contemplate and be mindful and be meditative. And that's what it means for me. Now, that's not to say, just to finish on that, as a psychologist, it would be remiss if I didn't say mindfulness practices are very helpful in helping people overcome challenges, psychological, emotional, and mental challenges. And they're also very good practices for mental performance, the other side of mental health. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. But for me, my mindfulness practices revolve around walking and the sauna, and I find great comfort and consolation in those personally.
Mate, love that. Two things. Can you timestamp that, Daniel, when he said it's okay to have a beer? Can you send that to my wife, please? So Harry said it's okay to just chill with a beer. No, I love that, mate. If you wouldn't mind, Harry, down the track, send us a photo of your sauna. We can include it on the socials, mate. If it's a very impactful part of your world, then I think an insight into someone being able to see that would be great.
Yep.
Appreciate I didn't know what you were going to say about meditation, so that wasn't a loaded question for you or our listeners. So that's very insightful as far as that goes. It is a hard practice. I found myself falling asleep the first couple of times because that was my body telling me I wasn't quite ready to sort of go into that space. And two, one of the other things you were speaking about there from a mindfulness and mental health perspective. There's a show on TV recently. It's a parenting show. It was on Channel 9 or something with Ali Langdon, where she was talking about a bunch of different parenting styles that they have. And Tamara and I don't have kids. We've got a couple of little puppies, so we weren't really into it. But for some reason, I saw the wrap up of the show, and the theme of this year's show was all about kids' mental health and the way they deal with them. Like last year's show was saying no to strangers and stuff like that. All good, very very great show for parents to watch. And there was a little girl who jumped on there, and she said, "My theory on mental health is the way that I engage with my internal thoughts." And you should have seen the parents just jaws drop. They're like, whoa, a little 8-year-old just gave us an insight into what mental health is the way that we engage with our own internal thoughts. And I just wondering what your spin on. I obviously remembered it because I've just written it down again now. So I think what a wonderful
How good is that?
8-year-old to summarize it.
How good is that? And it couldn't be said any better. So the fourth pillar is not as interested in the evidence, but what is evident to you. Yeah. And that's my my psychological philosophy, how I do psychology. And psychologists are not there to provide solutions. They're there to work with, and I lay this out in the book, to work with a person's what I call endogenous mental schema or models or thinking. And it's not the right word, but I couldn't find a better one through the synonym thesaurus. Yeah. And so what is a mental model? So I'll give you an example. When I was after I was wounded in action in 2008, laying in bed, I was in bed for a couple of months, in the dark, getting intravenous antibiotics and all the rest of it. I had a bad infection, and I thought, what am I going to do? I'm 65 kilos. I want to get back to 85. What do I do? I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat well. So I knew what that meant. But how am I going to get this depression? These kind of, I was visited by suicide. It wasn't anything more than that, but these are the thoughts that come to you in depression. It's quite normal. How am I going to get back from this? So there was building a gym of the mind. That this is the idea I had, and I wasn't the first to think of this, but this kind of came up. So anyway, I said about it, psychologist, doing some reading, and I was studying at the time. Anyway, the voice in my head, it was the first time I kind of came to terms with the voice in my head, and I labeled it. I've labeled it the commentator at the time. So the commentator is the person in my head going, here's Harry, he's got the ball, he's going to work, he's going to the coffee machine, he needs to go to the toilet, whatever. He's kind of commentating. We all have that voice in our head. So I gave it a commentator. And then as I was working with a psychologist, we worked out that maybe we should have 2 commentators in the box. And now I have 3. And so this is an endogenous model. There's the negative guy. I don't want to get rid of him. because that's the one that keeps you honest. That's the one that gives you a healthy imposter syndrome. You need the imposter syndrome to keep you honest and make sure your ego, you need a kick in the ass often, but you need to have a control. And then you need the good person who's there to advocate for you as a champion. Harry, you're okay. That's bullshit. The evidence doesn't point to that thought at all. Don't listen to him. Listen to me. But you don't want him getting out of control. You need to keep him on the. And so then you got Richie Benno in the middle, mate, the voice of reason.
Yeah.
And if you can, I can work through that OODA loop, or not OODA loop, but that loop really quickly now and divert. Okay, Richie's listened to both. What does he think? He said, no, Harry, you did a good job after that workshop. You weren't rubbish and no one disliked you, or whatever the case may be. So long-winded way of saying what that young girl has identified is that she's got her own way of viewing the world. And that's more important than any amount of evidence, because that's your starting point, whether it's someone's mentally ill or they're a high-performing athlete. What's evident to them? Not what does the evidence say that we're going to inject. What can we draw out of them? And I want to be philosophical. Socrates told us that as teachers, bosses, leaders, coaches, that we are midwives to people's knowledge about themselves and about the world. And Plato goes on after Socrates to say, apparently to say that all knowledge of everything and everyone is in everyone at birth, and it's up to the teachers, leaders, and elders to draw it out of them. And what Plato used the term spark. So I'm on a facilitation. I'm in Fiji on a small island doing a facilitation session, and one of the things I'm saying to the facilitators that are coming through, they're not here to hear from you. They're not here to hear from you. They're here to hear from each other. Your job is to provide an environment, set an environment so the sparks can happen. And that's what a midwife's job is, to deliver knowledge, not to insert it. So that's my position on that little girl's quote.
Yeah. Do you use that midwife? And I've got a couple of things that I'm just sitting here going, chick, check. I'm just got to cover off on this. So Axon's new catchphrase that we are the midwives of ADF property. All right, that's the first bit.
There you go.
Harry, that's a joke, by the way.
Oh, is it?
I've been called many things, but a midwife's not one of them. And it's just, but just the same. Everyone knows how to do it. It's just about providing that environment. I thought I was the only one that had those certain thoughts, because when I'm doing something, for some reason, well, not whichever one of it you were talking about, I don't think I've got the commentator sorted yet. But when I have a bad thought drop into my head, I'm like, I try and extract myself from that. And I'm like, why did you just plant that into my mind? Why did you think that was going to occur? Why would you think that way? Why would you think I would do that? Or why would you try and put myself in a situation where I want to get anxious about something which is very unlikely to occur? So I'm just listening to you there talking about, you've got the three personalities, or the three commentators, I think you use the term. I'm like, I thought I was the only one that was trying to now have a conversation with those that are having a conversation with me deep inside. It's a really weird feeling, mate. So thank you so much for sharing that. I feel more at peace now that I'm not the only one.
Well, we all do. And it takes an impossible feat of strength and discipline to quieten the voice in your head. I push back a bit in the book against the people who rail against the monkey mind, trying to quieten the monkey mind. Good luck. Yeah, it's impossible. And that, coming back to meditation, one of the misnomers of meditation is that you're trying to quieten your mind. That's not correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about coming to peace with the mind and recognizing what thoughts are coming forth. And it goes to the central tenet of the book, really, is about the qualia of our life. What is the quality of our experience of our consciousness?
Is that what qualia means? Quality of experience?
Yeah, it's the quality of our consciousness, our conscious experience of the world. Now, consciousness, no one knows what that is, whether it's permitted by the brain, emitted by the brain, filtered by the brain. They're not really sure. There's a whole bunch of theories that I don't go into too much depth in the book about it. But it's, again, mate, the quality of your experience right now, the color, the form, the shape, the noise, all of those types of things have a quality to them, and then synthesized into an experience of the world, and that's qualia, as I understand it. And then there's an essence of of us, which is quiddity, which is also experienced by us. We experience us. And so my kind of thesis is that these 8 privileges are the way to exercise that experience, that qualia. And I think that some people have quite a shitty qualia, and that you can see that in people. Kids and dogs can pick up in this is Harry Moffitt's 3 pints in at the bar philosophy, that it's that essence of people, whether they're happy or sad or deficit or asset minded or whatever the case may be. But right now, Robbie, I feel like the luckiest man on earth. Seriously, from the heart, I am so satisfied with life. I'm satisfied enough. I'm so happy with my family, my health, my mental state, and I feel very lucky, and I feel a bit boastful in saying that. And I put it down. These 8 practices I do every week in some form or another, and I fit them into my week. And I really believe, as I lay out in the book quite passionately, that that the most satisfied people, and I always qualify that with satisfied enough, because you'll never be satisfied, capital S.
That's right.
The people who I see out in the high performance world that are not only high performers but satisfied with their lives, they read, they walk, they spend time, they're comfortable in their own skin, they're patient, they listen to people, they guard space so that people can be in the world with them. They're the good bloke and top chick for all the bloody infantry guys out there, and I think these things are essential to that.
Yeah. What I would summarize with what you said then is I've got been learning a lot of my wife, because she brings up energy, that sort of emittance of, like, whether someone's got those sort of mindset traits that you spoke about before. And she says, check your energy at the moment. I can feel bad energy from you. But then, so her and I have that conversation, but I'm now acutely aware of other people's energy. Just sort of, I think the way that people are feeling about themselves, the way that they're conversing with their internal thoughts, therefore how their mental health is going, and what the sort of moods are. It's and you're absolutely right. Kids and dogs are the 2 things that can really pick up on energy.
Yeah, I'll qualify. That's not a scientific evidence-based. I think that's just my view of the world. But
Yeah.
yeah, and you can feel it with people. And I think one thing psychology gives you is, you spend a long time sitting and listening to people attentively and with intention, and that practices a certain way of looking at people, and can get in the way sometimes. But in the book, I say too, I spent a bit of time on the street in some shitholes like Kabul and other places, one up, casing out people, trying to work out what they're there to do, who's who in the zoo, in a very foreign environment. And I think it's a great practice in building empathy, because you start to think, what are other people thinking? And this brings me back to the practice of theory of mind. When were we ever trained in theory of mind? It blows my mind that people don't know what that is. And what is that? It's thinking about how you think and thinking about how other people think. And in the military context, it's critical. It's critical in negotiation in business. It's critical in a sports field with the intent of split-second tackler coming in to hit you. But it's the thing that underpins it. It's the muscle movement that underpins it. We never talk about it. So I introduced that, I think, to a lot of people in the book.
Thinking about thinking, mate. I love that. Mate, in summary, Harry, I think you bring an extraordinary blend of lived experience as an SAS veteran, your professional psychology with elite performance and philosophical insights. And as you can see in this episode, team, the 4th pillar is not just another self-help book. It reframes how we think about performance, life, and wisdom. So, yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the session, mate. Harry, thanks so much for coming on and sort of sharing your updates about what's going on in your life. I'm going to use that too. I'm going to reflect a lot on this and listen to this episode to hear you again. I don't like listening to myself, but just those things about I'm satisfied enough. Like that's, I'm a massive advocate for the infinite game. Simon Sinek speaks about that philosophy. You don't get to the end of life and become the winner of business. You're not the winner of your marriage. You're not the winner of being satisfied. As long as you're doing well enough and you're moving in a positive direction is my perspective on things, then, you should have a good level of mental health, and you should be able to engage in a positive manner with your internal thoughts. So as we said in the little prelude before we got started and we pressed play on this, mate, if if one person listens to this podcast and one person is getting something from it by the wisdom that you passed on so graciously here today, or then goes and buys the book and reads the book and then has a different way about their thinking about their life, and they just become a little bit more satisfied enough, to use that term we're just speaking about, mission accomplished, brother. That's what it's all about, eh?
Yeah, good on you, Robbie. I appreciate it, mate. Thank you.
No worries. Well, yeah, there you go, ladies and gents. Hope you enjoyed another episode of Axons Unleashed. So we'll keep these little updates coming. I hope everyone's enjoying sort of re-engaging with some of the guests that have been, part of our Axons Unleashed podcast journey over the last few years. Hope you have a great day. See you again next time. Thanks so much.